is, I think, up. We have. Oh, I gotta turn off my Spotify. Why is that? Okay, and last thing, overlays. Good morning, everybody. I hope this is going to be another positive morning for you. I thank you all for being here. And welcome to Freedom Coffee. This is where we... Oh, wait. Oh. This is where we get reverb. This is where we celebrate the freedoms that we have, that many people in the world wish they had, and work on expanding our freedoms in the future for not only ourselves, but for everybody else. So thank you for being here. Headshot, thank you for the wave. Good morning. How do I wave? I just click that and it waves back to you on Instagram. So I'm doing something a little bit different. I hope this isn't a disaster. I'm just launching. I don't know if you guys know, but there's also a Honking For Freedom. Maybe you're on mute. Wait, hold on. There's also a Honking For Freedom Telegram group, which has... After I executed a bunch of bots to clear house, there's about 6,000 people there, I think, in the Honking For Freedom. So if you're listening in the Honking For Freedom Freedom Convoy Telegram group, thank you for joining. And this is Freedom Coffee. We run on multiple streams as I'm trying to learn and figure this out. And we're all going to do it together, having coffee, sharing this positive vibe, and ensuring the rest of our day is going to be absolutely awesome. So good morning to all of you who are here, and thank you. So a couple of things. There is also a Honking For Freedom Rumble channel that's basically, mimicking the YouTube channel. I don't know how far we're going to go with it, but it's there. And, always hedge your bets, especially in the age of censorship, which was something that I had to deal with during the Freedom Convoy, and a number of people asked me, about the media strategy, how it operated, and how I circumnavigated the strategy. I think pretty successfully. There is a chapter on it. It's chapter 11 in the book, which is really good. It's very interesting. I'll talk more about that moving forward. So. I was in the truck this week in a Twitter space because I like to, I like to do multiple things at once. So I was plugged in with my headphones, driving the truck in a Twitter space, for a Bitcoin Twitter space, actually. And I found out, and shout out to you guys, by the way, I found out that the Queen Elizabeth had died. And I didn't know. How do you know? People were surprised I didn't know. But you're on the road. You're doing a bunch of stuff. I was on the phone with my lawyer earlier, or one of my lawyers, and so things were just quite busy. And it was I don't want to say overplay it, a surreal moment and stuff like that, but it's definitely an historical moment that the longest reigning monarch in England has passed away. Now. They are instantly, I saw a lot of people from across the political spectrum, celebrating that the passing of the Queen of England, which I don't understand celebrating the death of people unless they're truly evil, but I guess their perspective was that she was truly evil in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't agree with that take on it, and I'm going to explain a little bit why. And this is also part of the healing process, the process of coming together with people across the political spectrum and reaching out to people that we don't necessarily agree with on all issues, or sometimes many issues. I don't know what's with my throat today. I apologize. It is the morning, and I went to sleep rather late, and normally I'm up at, today my alarm went off at 5:30 like usual, but it was not a quick exit from the bed this morning. Anyways, okay, so I want to read something short about Queen Elizabeth that I think is important for us to understand. And remember the era that this was occurring in. This was in the 40s, the 1940s. We're referencing World War II. So at 16 years of age, then Princess Elizabeth had been given the role of honorary colonel of the Grenadier Guards, according to the museum. But it was after turning 18 in 1944, she insisted upon joining the Auxiliary Territorial Service, a branch of the military. And it's auxiliary service, but nonetheless, most of us haven't done any military service, let alone auxiliary. So let's have an even fair share at respect for that. So in a video at the Imperial War Museum, the curator, Kate Clements, said that Elizabeth joined the military against the wishes of her father, King George. Then the king ensured that Elizabeth was not given a special rank in the army. The National World War II Museum says, Elizabeth ultimately trained as a driver and mechanic with the rank of second subaltern, I'm sorry, I just butchered it, and was promoted 5 months later to junior commander. So she decided in the 40s, remember what life was like in the 40s, that was still, the idea of working women was relatively new. So in the 40s, she wanted to be in the military, and her father, King George, said, okay, great, you want to be in the military? You get no special treatment. You're going to go be a mechanic and get your hands dirty. And she did it. So I think, firstly, in terms of character, that in itself says a lot, especially at, hold on. That's why the mic isn't working. Can you hear me now, Jason? So that is one thing that says something about her character. The fact that, despite the fact that she was young, she was going to go out and she was going to serve in the military. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure, brother. But the second thing is, I listened to this story yesterday about Queen Elizabeth on, I think it was on a podcast. I was just getting back into Canada. And it was very interesting. It was the Queen and one of her aides, protectionary forces, whatever, one of the guys from Buckingham Palace. They were in the countryside at a park or whatever. And there were some American tourists. They were hiking tourists that were going through the countryside. They flew to England for a couple of weeks just to go hiking on the trails and see England. It's kind of, what it's like in the countryside, the nature sort of thing, what their parks are like, that sort of thing. So they stumbled across the Queen and this gentleman who worked for her, and they had no idea who she was. They realized pretty quickly after they had no idea, but they stopped and said, hello, how are you, and blah, blah, blah. And the Queen engaged and said, oh, how do you, you're American, how are you enjoying England? What are you doing? They talked about, oh, I'm going here and blah, 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 whatever. And then one of the Americans said, we're thinking about going maybe to Buckingham Palace. I wonder if we could meet the Queen. And so they looked at each other like, I don't know. And the Queen then says, this gentleman beside me has actually worked with the Queen and has, spoken to her numerous times, done different, I didn't say security deals, but however she described it, and said he knows her. And they said, oh, really? You know the Queen? What's she like? And he said, basically, well, she's lovely. She can be very difficult from time to time. But in general, she's a wonderful person. And the Americans said, well, I really hope we get a chance to see her and whatever. And then the Americans, the gentleman who was with the Queen said, well, why don't we take your pictures together? And because they wanted a picture with the guy who had met the Queen. So the Americans went and had the picture with the Queen's assistant. And then they said to the Queen, oh, do you mind if we take a picture with you? And she said, oh, it would be my pleasure. So the assistant took a picture with the Queen and these two people. And after they left and did their, goodbyes, she said to her assistant, I wish I was a fly on the wall to see their reaction when they show that picture to their friends. that they met this this lady and they didn't realize she was the queen. The point is that's her sense of humor. That's a very real trait. That is a sign not only of intelligence, the fact that her work ethic going into the military. Now, there are all sorts of people, both in England and abroad, in Canada and Australia, who don't like the idea of the monarch and whatever. Okay, fine, to each their own. But we have to remember it's become an institution, especially on the conservative side, where, conservatives always talk about tradition is kind of one of their basic hallmarks. That irrespective of problems with the monarch throughout the history of England, it's become a traditional institution of England, and it's become a massive point of tourism for the United Kingdom, right? That's become their global identity. A big part of it is the fact that they have this monarch. So people aren't going to be quick to turn it away. And at the same time, I don't see it as being necessarily a negative. I know people are should the taxes and whatever, but you make those back in the billions of dollars in tourism that result in that come into England as a result of the monarch. So that's one thing. But I saw many people attacking her and wishing her ill will, which was kind of weird. And it was interesting. I saw a couple of people I know post really harsh comments. And I thought to myself, have you considered how other people feel about that? Or are you just stuck in your own head and just dealing with what you think, right? It's only your worldview that matters. And most of our worldviews are your opinions. We don't come to them on our own. They're basically dictated to us, which is a whole other issue. But the fact that they would go out with such vitriol and attack people, and you think that, well, why don't you consider the perspective of other people? And we're all subjected to this. We all do this from time to time, and we got to try to utilize observing ego not to fall into this trap. We see this on both sides. Like, for example, on both sides, or all sides of the philosophical worldview. For example, with Justin Trudeau, who those of you who know me know I do not like blackface diversity at all. I like nothing about him. However, have you ever considered what people who do like him see in him, right? Again, not an endorsement to say that you like him, but sometimes it's beneficial to understand what fuels the people who support the other side, and not as an endorsement, but just as a tool for understanding and communicating with the other side to understand what's driving them. Because at the end of the day, we have this, the divide is not real in your day-to-day life. The divide is online. The divide is in the political spectrum, the political circles and echo chambers. But we do have to go on this journey of this new era that we're headed towards. And I think in order to do that, it's probably advisable to understand what the people who think differently than you are thinking. Because once you do that, then you can persuade people, which, again, just to repeat what I was trying to do during the Freedom Convoy with the messaging, which is what ended up in getting people who were in the Liberal cabinet talking to me through a couple of conduits, and ended up with people who were in the NDP and former school trustees speaking to me as well. You can't persuade people if you're just constantly attacking them and being vitriolic towards them. That's never going to do it. So for those people who don't like the British monarch and the system and the Queen, celebrating her death is not going to persuade people that they need to move beyond the monarch, which is not something I believe, by the way, but just a little tip in communicating to people. Next up, I saw this morning. Let's find out if I get banned from YouTube today, okay? That is, according to, you know what, I don't remember the source. I didn't put it up. It was on Twitter. It was on Twitter, it was on Getter, a few other places. Apparently, a drug that rhymes with I never met him was now added to the list of the National Institute of Health cerveza sickness treatments. I'm trying to walk this carefully because I don't know where the YouTube algorithm is right now. So the drug rhymes with I never met him, is now recognized by NIH, which is Fauci's organization, where they said there will never be any, there's no treatments for the cerveza sickness. There's just the vaccine. Now they've added I never met him, the drug, to their list. What's going on? Whoa, what happened? I mean, and the reason that's like significant, like, I don't know what you think of that. But governments behave like banks. Once they make a decision, that's it. They dig their heels in because it's too much work to just to reevaluate things and try something different, right? But the fact that they're willing to now add that as treatment, what do you think of that? I never anticipated that. I didn't predict that. It must be really bad. It must be really significant what's gone on now behind the scenes for them to take this this step. And it's funny. I was talking to somebody early in the cerveza sickness, a doctor, somebody I'm friends with, I'm close with, and I mentioned, I think it was the I never met him drug, but it could have been, it was that or something else. One of them, I can't remember. Is I never met him used for malaria? I think that's the one that was used for malaria, no? Anyways, her response was, in the beginning, as a doctor, she said, well, I don't know, because that really focuses on the lungs, and it focuses on attaching itself to the hemoglobin, and then she went off with a whole bunch of scientific terms. I had no idea what she meant. But she said, in theory, if it was a virus like malaria, then that would work, but I'm not so sure. She said, but I'll tell you something about medicine. You know what we do often? We do anything to save the person's life. So it might not be work. It might not work. It might not be scientifically, supported. There might not be data for it. But you know what? If we're seeing positive results in front of our eyes, we're just going to try it. We're going to throw everything at it so we can hopefully find a solution to it, which is the complete opposite that we see from the bureaucratic doctors, right? The ones that are loyal to government narratives, and often not out of choice. Many doctors we know were threatened to have their license pulled if they didn't promote vaccines. I'm sure many other people know doctors that quietly explained the reality behind the scenes and what they can and cannot say. But yeah, just it's really interesting, and I think what we are seeing of the bureaucracy in medicine and science is we're starting to see them treat science as religion, and that's very, very dangerous. And the deity is somebody's interpretation of data, because remember, there's data and then there's interpretation, and that's why I never wanted to get into this debate of the data around the cerveza sickness, because nobody knows. Everybody's running a narrative based on data, which the data they don't know the presuppositions. So for example, you hear a bunch of people talking about data around the sudden death syndrome, whatever it's called. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I thought to myself, is that the same data that told us that the cerveza sickness was so lethal and we had to lock down the entire world? So it's interesting how, when it benefits our narrative, then we're going to switch over to the data. But if it doesn't reinforce confirmation bias, then we're going to omit the data. And that's just human beings. That's just how we are. And I saw that happen during the convoy. I saw a number of people that I thought were going to be kind of objective just get sucked into this paradigm over data. And for me, data doesn't mean anything if you don't have enough time. And that's what we were missing. So comments, I'm going to get through. There's a whole bunch of them coming up. Good morning, Megan, Claudette. Thank you so much for coming here. It's Great Shadows, Wayne Peters, and what's ahead next is not priority. Okay, fair enough. K9, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well, and I hope everything is awesome on your end. I get anger at hatred for the Queen, and they can have their opinion, but left no room for anyone to have a difference of opinion. Yeah, I think that's the whole point, that people they're trapped into an echo chamber and they're stuck in their own head, right? And they won't step back and say, okay, well, what do other people think? I was trying to do that throughout all our Convoy stuff, and whenever trying to, as we were messaging every day, as we were doing the press releases, I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what's our opposition going to be thinking, or what are the smear merchants and the fake news media going to be saying later today? Let's front run them and get the truth out before they do, and try to unspin the spin before they spin it, if that makes sense. Charles is a WF member, King Charles, and that is an issue. Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's always been... he's always been a POS. There's a reason that his mother never wanted him to be anywhere near the throne, and not just because his personal lifestyle regarding his marriages and adultery. And I don't judge. People do what they want. I don't really care. I know people who have very flawed lives in that manner, but they're also not supposed to be the representative of a country. And when you do that, you don't... there are certain standards you have to abide by. They're walking a trail she liked to walk. Yes, the Queen walked fairly often. So I'll get to the... BJ, are you aware of the big meetup in Winnipeg today and tomorrow? I think so. There's a few things going on. I don't know how big that one is. I know next week there is the World Freedom Rally, and I am likely going to be attending one of them and giving a speech. I've been asked to give a speech somewhere. So I do know about that. Otherwise, no, I'm not entirely sure what's happening in Winnipeg. What is happening? Just put it in the comments if anybody knows. Next, the last thing I want to get to, and then I got a couple of comments, and then I got to run because this is Saturday, which means meeting with my editor on the book. And now things are starting to really accelerate. Now we're getting into crunch time on the manuscript and all sorts of other stuff coming down the pipeline on locals. Is that you, Jason? Yeah. Do you think the Queen and her old style prevented the advancement of globalism? Yes. The thing is, so this becomes a really nuanced conversation, and people get into the silos of certain camps, and then it becomes difficult to talk about it. So the globalists organizations like the WF, they're just money laundering schemes. That's all they are, right? So let's say the global money laundering schemes, that's very different than globalism. So globalism, I read a book on this several years ago. What the guy's name... Is it Nayan Chandra, if I'm not mistaken? Is a professor somewhere in the U.S. And he goes through the history of globalism from a trade perspective. And global trade it started, when civilization started, during the Sumerians and even the Ubayyad period, we think, going back, what's that, 8,000 years ago? The Silk Road. What was the Silk Road? The Silk Road was, globalism. That was global trade, right? And there is something to be said for global trade, and for that's a big part of what's advanced our societies. The fact that we could get resources that weren't available locally from all over the world, right? So that's kind of that perspective of globalization. I think that's important. That's an economic philosophy. The problem is, and versus isolationism, where you're like North Korea, you don't take anything from anywhere else in the world. So like anything else, anything in extremes are bad and dangerous. But in terms of isolationism, I think what people are I don't think people are looking for isolationism. They want to return to industry and economics that are not so dependent upon other countries. So one can argue that despite the Silk Road, it brought riches, but I don't think the Silk Road caused many parts of Europe to be dependent upon the Silk Road. Like, yeah, you wanted silk, okay, great, but that was a luxury item, sort of thing. And maybe Western Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire is a bad example because there's so many other problems at play. But like anything else, there's a balance. And the fact that our global leaders have taken our economies in the Western world and made them almost entirely dependent on financial services and services in general, and have completely abandoned all of the institutes of manufacturing and building and offshored all of that. I think we might have gone a little bit too far, and I think I know why they're trying to do it. I think the idea is the goal is to have an economy that is resistant to collapse. I think they're trying to build economies that won't do these boom-bust cycles, while at the same time the wealthier can get even more wealthy. I think that's what they're trying to do, and that's just not practical or logical. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I might be wrong in my assessment. I'm trying to be as charitable to the other side as possible because it's so easy to attack them, and everybody else, attacks them all the time. So I'm just trying to be charitable to the other side, even when I disagree with them. So I don't know if, Jason, I don't know if that answers your question. So I think globalist institutions that really, I don't know if it's veiled communism or it's serfdom that they're trying to build. It's one of the two, because they are, like Klaus Schwab. What's this? Soros is a big. I call him Schwartz. Soros is a big donor to the WF. All these people that are donating to it, they're all capitalists, but for themselves, right? For themselves, not for the rest of us plebs. No, the rest of us plebs, we can have some sort of veiled socialism, but for them, they like capitalism because they want all the capital. So I think there's something like that going on, but. What do I know? That's just my thesis. So the last thing I want to talk about before I leave is, and I haven't asked you guys this, do you think, and maybe you don't, but do you think it is important to know who sabotaged the Freedom Convoy? Now think about that. So I've mentioned this a couple of times. I've tickled it out that there's either individuals or institutions or political parties or somebody who may not have, probably may have, sabotaged the Freedom Convoy and caused all of those truckers to be arrested and have their trucks impounded and us to have our bank accounts frozen and whatever. Is it, do you care? Is it important to know that if the Freedom Convoy was sabotaged or not? Let me know. This is very important, because if you don't think it's important to know who sabotaged it, then maybe I'll just stop talking about it. But if you think it's important to know who did it, then I will go more in that direction, and we can kind of do that as an exercise together. Personally, I think it's important, but if people don't think it's important, you don't care, okay, then I won't discuss it. I won't discuss it, right? Because the problem is the first narrative Anybody in journalism, well, yeah, journalism and public relations, because they're the same thing, right? Anybody in journalism knows that the first narrative becomes the truth, right? That's why, when you see, I don't know, there's some sort of catastrophe or something, some tragedy, the news jumps on it and says, the building collapsed, this is the problem, this is how many people who died. Or, well, that's not an example. Some more controversial, that's more left-right, they're going to jump out and just make all sorts of assertions. You see this a lot with Trump. Because the first thing becomes the narrative, because people absorb it. What's that expression? The lie travels around the world in an instant, and the truth takes days to follow behind, something to that effect. There's all sorts of variants on that axiom. But so the first narrative becomes the important. So right now we see people trying to seed a narrative around the Freedom Convoy, which is complete bullshit. So in order to insert what might be a more, let's say, credible version of the truth, like something that's objectively factual, then it's going to take some, first step is to unwind the narrative that's already been spun that is false, and then to bit by bit slowly introduce the real facts of what was going on, which I have no problem doing. It'll just take a while to do that. So if you think that's important, I'll do it. Lisa says, yeah, it's very important. Okay, 1 vote from Lisa. K9, yeah, 100%. All right, so far we got a couple people really passionate about it. Lisa, I keep getting mixed messages. What do you mean by that, Lisa? What sort of mixed messages? And what's funny? Often when you get mixed messages, especially in terms of a narrative that may be coming out of different organizations and stuff, that's how you know it's not true, right? Because it's always damage control. It's, like the political parties always do. You got to control the messaging. You got to control the messaging because these people are obsessed with control. Thank you, Baudry. I'm just giving waves to everybody on Instagram. So it's going to be a process to explain exactly what went on behind the scenes during the Freedom Convoy. That's why the book has taken so long, and we think we're right at we just crossed 46,000 words. We're going to be right between 46,000 and 50,000 words. Lisa says the original organizers are telling different stories. Yeah, it's pretty. Oh, that's from Facebook. Okay, I can see it. Cool. Yeah, there is. We got some news yesterday that I'm going to expand upon, but I'm going to have a conversation with my lawyers later on today before I start talking about it. The Freedom Convoy board had 6 people on the board originally, which even I thought was too many, that we should have less. I was one of the 6 on the original board. And if you remember on the GoFundMe was Tamara and myself were on the GoFundMe because she was kind of on the ground and I was online and messaging and media and stuff. And that's kind of how we operated. So you're going to see a whole bunch of different, you're going to see things will change. Like I can be completely consistent because I don't care about politics. I'm never going to run in politics. Like I really don't. I hate it. I don't like the people and I don't like the experience. So I'm just going to go through and explain exactly what we went through and the unfiltered truth, whether people like it or not. I'm not here to help politicians specifically. I'm just going to go with what the truth was. So I hope in everything that I discussed that you'll get the sense and the understanding that everything I'm telling is consistent. Now, there's so many little things that went on behind the scenes. Like it took us just a month and a half just to go through all the dates of specific things that happened during the convoy that were relevant to the manuscript. And even like for me, it was one one long day that just never ended. It was just constant chaos, and my mind was processing at 100% of the time, because it never stopped, because there's always a problem. There's always somebody else trying to set up their own press conferences and speaking for us, and there was always conflict, and there were people fighting, and there was not fighting, but differences of opinion and arguing, and they want to go in a different direction. They want to make it about vaccines. They want to just like, oh my God, can people just stop? Like, so many. That was my life every day. Lisa, lots of infighting right now between the leaders and the participants. Yeah, well, I mean, Lisa, you're on Facebook, right? Okay. One of the things that I've maintained that's very odd is, have you noticed all the messaging out of the Freedom Convoy, which is why I've kind of gone off on my own direction and building out Honking For Freedom. And that's this platform here on Locals, by the way, if you haven't subscribed, honkingforfreedom.locals.com. I'll explain why you'll need to join at some point. There is a Freedom Convoy Facebook page, right? And it has, I think, I'm just new back to Facebook, so I've been away from Facebook for a few years since, it's a long story. I'll explain how I left last time. It's kind of funny. So anybody who's watching on Facebook who thinks he gets an alert that I'm not talking to them, that's not it. My account was deleted. So there's a Freedom Convoy Facebook group that's run by, I don't know, I think, sorry, in the group, I think there's 400,000, 500,000 people. Did you know that's being run by lawyers? Some run by any truckers or anybody associated with the Freedom Convoy. Did you know that? And I just found out recently that has been the case since the near end of the Freedom Convoy. Like, it's crazy. Because I was dealing with the Twitter account, I was dealing with the media interviews, I was dealing with the press releases, with the team around me, and I didn't have Facebook because I stopped using, I didn't understand why people still used Facebook, right? Just as a promotional tool, its conversion rate had collapsed in 2018, so I just got away from Facebook for that reason, as a business decision, right? And I got a fight with a little politician by the name of Eunuch O'Toole, which is another interesting story. I was in the Dominican when that happened. But anyways, so yeah, the Facebook Freedom Convoy group, which has 500,000 people, that's run by lawyers. And it's been run by lawyers since the very end of the Freedom Convoy. And it was so funny. I put something up on, I know they're all monitoring all my stuff as well. Yeah, they want to see kind of what is, what's the narrative going out there, what sort of messages. And I love it when they take like messages that I post and then they post it as their own in the Freedom Convoy, a group chat. It's crazy. K9, I'll find, I think it's Freedom Convoy 2022 or something like that. It's the big one that Tamara was doing her streams from. I dealt with Twitter, she dealt with Facebook, just kind of division of labors because she was big into Facebook and I wasn't because of all the censorship. I think that's what it is, but that's a group. So I would suggest all the people in that group ask who is manning that account and watch them go into damage control and try to bring somebody on to say, oh no, well, irrespective of what they do from now, September 10th, up till September 10th, that's been exclusively controlled and messaged by lawyers. And I'm not a lawyer, and I would never do that to you because that's dishonest and deceptive. So, and that's basically, so that's all I just want to say about the Freedom Convoy. If you think it's important to discuss who, if anybody, sabotaged the Freedom Convoy, let me know, and I can make that kind of a regular topic because it's the thing is these topics sometimes are quite esoteric because there's so many different steps involved in piecing it all together. It's kind of like, for me, it's the whodunit of Canadian politics in 2022. So if you want me to talk more about it and you want us to talk more about it, please do. And I'm always looking for your feedback, your input, your ideas. in the chat. Put it in there. Tell me what you think, and we can discuss it. It'll be fun. I did mention the honkingforfreedom.locals.com. The reason you're going to want to join. Firstly, I'm going to do more exclusive content. It sounds like I'm running an OnlyFans account now. I'm going to do more targeted content on the honkingforfreedom.locals.com as time goes on, and you'll understand why. It's not very clear at this moment, but you'll understand why going forward. And the second thing is there is going to be a book launch. And to go to the book launch, there's going to be, I already know, a lot of demand. I already got a couple of sponsors that are interested, a couple of companies that are interested in sponsoring the book event, which is amazing. I never thought we'd be there. So, and it's only going to be 200 people. So it's going to be kind of like, not because of me, but because of other people that will be there. It's going to be kind of, remember the Rolling Stones played a venue in the late 90s for 100 people in New York, and it was like the big thing. Well, it's nowhere near that, but given the people that may be in attendance, and we're just trying to work out everybody's schedules and details, it would be hugely significant. So that's so if you want to attend, the order of preference is going to be we're going to offer tickets to the people in Honking for Freedom, and then people who subscribe to my Substack, which is BJdichter.substack.com. And then we're going to be offering tickets to the general public after that. The problem is the Honking for Freedom, I think, has, if I remember correctly, around 500 people subscribe to it. Then the Substack has around 100,000 people subscribe to it. And then, everybody else. So for only 200 tickets, I don't imagine it's going to be easy to get tickets without having joined the honkingforfreedom.locals.com, which you'll also have the first opportunity to get the book. And the book is amazing. I've never written a book. I'm writing it with a good friend of mine who is a published author and was an investigative journalist for decades, which was hugely helpful in putting this book together. You're going to like it because irrespective of what the narrative the government is trying to put forward or political parties are trying to put forward, I can tell you one thing, none of them are telling you the truth. None of them. There's because everybody, they're both in their silos. The left versus right, the red versus blue, the white versus black, right? They're stuck in their silos, so they're never going to say anything positive to either side. They're never going to give any ground. I'm not politically beholden to anybody, and I don't really care. So, yeah, it's going to be, I promise you'll like it. Okay, so K9 says 10.9 thousand followers in Freedom Convoy 20. That's not it. It's a large... that's not the group. I'll try to find it and send you a DM or something. Trauma Nurse, I will forever be grateful for the convoy. If it were not for them, we would be in a very dark place right now. Yeah. If it weren't for the Canadian convoy, we'd still have lockdowns all over the world. We'd have mask mandates everywhere. It scared the politicians, was the idea. Not to scare them out of anything in terms of, danger and violence and stuff, but scared them in terms of these mass voting blocks that they all tried to appeal to was turning against them. And that was the message that was sent. And that's why so many of you contributed and donated to the GoFundMe and the Give, Send, Go, and most of that money was returned. There's a couple of people who've asked me, somebody emailed me, I don't know if you're watching it right now, somebody asked me, I gave a donation, but I never got money back. This is the way it works. Either you got your money back from Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe, or you were one of the people whose money is held in escrow. And of course, we don't get a breakdown of all of that because we're not given it, because it's now in escrow with a bankruptcy trustee. And, GoFundMe deleted all their records. Give, Send, Go held on for as long as they could until they started getting political pressure. And so it was a very, very unique situation. It was really quite odd. So anyways. Okay, a couple of comments, and then I'm going to run to the meeting. And if you have any other further questions or comments, please throw it in the comments box, whatever you're listening or watching on. And I'll try to get to that. So first comment. This is what he says, quote, "Well, today I will definitely be breaking the positive vibe, unfortunately. The other side," so the other people politically think differently, "the other side doesn't want to be reached. Well, both sides don't, unless you come bearing their favorite narratives. Somewhere along the lines when Trump took office and in Canada when the cerveza sickness hit, people stripped the humanity away from the other side in their eyes and lost compassion for them." And he goes on further. It was a very, very long comment, and thank you for it. The comment is awesome, and don't think I'm omitting the other things for specific reasons. We'll get onto that farther. But that general sense of, the other side won't listen. Of course, that's just how people are. That's why, they call it the art of persuasion and understanding the other side. It's not easy, and it's not you press a button and it just happens. It's, bit by bit, time over time, and not everybody's gonna listen. There are certain people that are just ideologues. They're gonna hold on to their worldview no matter what. But those aren't the people you're trying to reach. You're trying to reach the regular people around them who do want to be reached and who are open to being talked to. And there's a lot more of them than there are the ideologues, despite the fact that our media and political organizations are using behavioral economics to try to push people into these echo chambers. That's still the minority of people. And that's why you see it more affects younger people, because younger people are more susceptible to it. Whereas, with age comes wisdom, and with age you start to understand that everyone's a liar. Like just everybody, at least in the political realm, they're all liars in some way, shape, or form. Number 2, thanks for a reminder about taking a break. Something I suggested last time, that we all gotta, we see all this controversy online. Everybody's at each other's throats, but when when I go outside in about 10 minutes, I get in my car, I go to the coffee shop. We all have different political worldviews. We're civil to each other. We joke with each other. Like the people in my local coffee shops all know who I am. And I go in and I joke and we hang out and we have all sorts of diverging opinions, but we're just there to have coffee and to talk to each other and appreciate the fact that we have differences. Because if we didn't have differences, we wouldn't be using our brains. So thanks for the reminder about taking a break. Unfortunately, life has cast me with an inordinate disdain for injustice. Stood in the face of corruption many times, not to know the basic freedoms, are in dire straits here and now. Good thing I have a physical and dangerous occupation to keep my old mind off things from time to time. Keep me sane and genuinely happy in the seriousness of it all. Oh, I find your spiel to be pretty good and interesting. Thank you very much. I'm doing my best. Hope the book will be available as an audiobook as well. Thanks for what you do. Yep, don't ruin my surprises, but I do have a number of surprises involving this book and the team that I'm working with, and half the team is actually in South America. But you won't be disappointed, and there's more to come. So thank you very much. And I know it's difficult to get out of the state of cynicism, and I get it. We all have it. Like I had a couple of days like that this week, that I was just aggravated, and yet I brought out my 5-minute journal, which is kind of one of the tools I use to kind of bring myself back into a positive framework. And the 5-minute journal was a 30-minute journal, just because I was so ramped up and aggravated with some stuff I was dealing with. We all go through it. And some days are easier than others. But if we're constantly trying to at least go in the direction of positivity, then we will get there. But if we're not trying to, it's just never going to happen. And also, you said you're older and you have a dangerous occupation. I don't know your age. But, I remember when I used to be, I've been into a lot of things. I have lots of hobbies in my life. But I remember when I used to be in modeling, like model cars and model trains. And, started when I was a kid and just kind of advanced into, I guess, my teens. And eventually, life starts to take over, as does girls, and you move on. But, in the model train industry, the majority of people were they were maybe senior citizens, close to retirement sort of thing. And you could see the amount of calm and solace that would give people. You search on YouTube, search anything about, modeling, model trains, that sort of stuff. You'll see a lot of them are a certain age demographic, and it's just a tool that gives them pleasure, but it keeps them calm. Why? Because it's quiet. There's nobody around. You do it on your own, and they're for long periods of time. You get this sense of accomplishment because you've built something. And, many of them will listen to music or all sorts of stuff to kind of, but it brings you into that sort of calm state that I think we all need. So I don't know if that helps for you, but it did for me. And I'll probably get back into that at some point in my life. Last comment, and we'll call it a day. So are you still predicting a snap election this fall, or do you think the new polling will stop the Liberals from calling one? I don't know the new polling, and I don't even need to see it to know that nothing changes. Nothing changes until at least the Conservative leadership. But I think it's a lot of it hinges on what's going to be happening. I mean, obviously, a lot of it hinges on what happens in the NDP. So I don't think anything has changed. And if anything, I think it's gotten worse because they see momentum around Pierre Poilievre, and that if he becomes the leader, they cannot have Poilievre in the parliament treating Trudeau like a punching bag for a year, 2 years, 3 years. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to allow that to happen. Not only would it destroy Trudeau and any of his kids of having a future in politics, it'll destroy the Liberal Party, because if Pierre became leader and they go to parliament, I'm almost certain that no other MP in the Conservative Party would be speaking, or very minimal at best. It would just be a barrage of Pierre just treating Trudeau like a punching bag and exposing him to everybody who are, on the center, who are not politically aligned, who kind of can, I don't know if it's center because everybody's so far left, but, between the two parties. And it'll help them see the reality of what Trudeau is, and they can't allow that to happen. So that's not. So yes, I think we're going to be in an election before the end of the year. At least if I was head of the Liberal Party, knowing the few years of experience I have with branding and marketing and messaging, there's no way in hell I would allow him to go after Trudeau. Like, now, they're some of the stupidest people work in politics, so you never know. They just don't get it, because it's always short segments. They think play the long term, but they really don't. They have no idea how to. So they don't know how to stay 5 steps ahead, even though they think they do. There's a couple that do, but for the most part they don't as a class. Okay, I gotta run. So any other questions on locals, let me know. K9, enjoy the rest of the day. Wild West Ranch, that's the place people are meeting up. Yeah, I don't know. I'll take a look at it later on after my meeting and see what that is, and see if there's a need to comment on it. So honkingforfreedom.substack.com. I'm on Twitter and Getter stuff. You guys know that. Substack, BJdichter.substack.com. So 4 tickets for the book launch, which we're just about to start organizing and planning and figuring what the date will be. It'll be before Christmas. Okay, it won't be too close. It's not going to be, December 21st. It'll be a little bit, farther from that, but it'll be before Christmas for sure. And in order to get tickets there, the first people that get dibs on it are the people who have subscribed to Honking For Freedom. .locals.com. Then the people who subscribed to the locals platform, BJdichter.substack.com, and then it will be for everybody else. So if you want to come out and meet us and talk to us, and it's going to be a great night, I promise you, it's going to be really good. Okay, I got to run, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do one of these tomorrow morning. But maybe, I was thinking maybe in the afternoon or even tonight or tomorrow night, I still want to have that watch party with Punchy McGregor's fake news documentary on the Freedom Convoy. So maybe I'll try to squeeze that in. Anyways, but tomorrow morning, I'm going to be in a meeting, so I won't be able to be here. But I will still be around, okay? Thanks. Gotta run.